Yo, what's up all you burner stoners and potheads? This is Weedman 420 with the Weedman 420 Chronicles. How are all you vipers doing out there? Mrs. Weedman.
Mr. Weedman.
How the hell are you?
Doing well.
Really?
Or I should say fantastic. I think that has become my my tagline.
Hey, all you vipers out there, hopefully you're smoking some big fat doinks while we're listening to the show. And we're about to get normal. And we are smoking a strain that was given to us by our good friend, Ignius, who actually won Best in Flavor for the Urban Legends Cup. And the strain that he gave us two strains to smoke. One we smoked last night, and that was the one that won Best in Flavor, and that was Caked Up Cherry, which was delicious, by the way, so thank you again. But the one we're smoking tonight, which I'm super excited for because I've never had it, is Animal Tsunami.
Ooh.
And this is an indica-dominant hybrid, 70-30, 70 indica, 30 sativa. Animal Tsunami is an indica dominant created through crossing the delicious animal cookies and caramel tsunami strains. A super delicious bud with an even more delightful high. Animal Tsunami is a great choice for any fan of soothing indica strains. The bud has a mouth-watering, sugary, and creamy nutty caramel taste with hints of woody pine to it. The aroma is very similar with sugary, nutty cookie overtone extended by woody pine and earthy spices, herbs. Remember I came running up to you when I was grinding? I'm like, smell this. Yeah. It smells like really, really like vanilla. Mm-hmm. The Animal Tsunami high will settle in a few moments after the final toke, filling your mind with a near immediate sense of lifted yet calming euphoria. You'll feel mentally at ease, free of any bad moods. Hell yeah. Negative vibes or racing thoughts of speak of. Yes. Great strain.
Yes.
A relaxing body high finishes everything out, settling into the limbs and leaving you feeling slightly couch locked and totally at ease. Oh, my kind of strain. With these effects, and it's insanely high between 30 to 32% average THC level, Animal Tsunami is often chosen to treat experienced patients suffering from chronic pain, headaches. Mrs. Weedman actually has a headache right now. Chronic stress, cramps, or PMS. Depression and nausea. Wow, lots of good stuff.
All sounds.
This bud has dense and oversized minty green shaped nugs, spade shaped nugs. Actually, it did. Mm-hmm. With deep purple undertones, with orange hairs, and tiny purple tinted white crystal trichomes. That is exactly the way that bud looked. The effects: body high euphoria, happy, relaxing, uplifting. Relief of symptoms: chronic pain, cramps, depression, headaches, nausea, PMS, and stress. Flavors: creamy, nutty, spicy, sugary, sweet, vanilla, and woody. Spicy. Aromas are earthy, herbal, pine, spicy, sweet, vanilla, and woody. I'd like to thank Ignius for this beautiful smelling strain that's coming my way right now.
Oh, you want some?
Oh, I do. I do. And we are smoking it out of a Spliff Society palm leaf, which is our favorite, and Briggs, thank you for always throwing us some wraps. We love smoking them on the show and wherever we're around. So let me take a couple hits of this. So
yeah, really good.
While you tell them what we did on Sunday. Where were we on Sunday?
Sunday, we were at the Urban Legends Cup. Mm-hmm. That was at Blue Island Beer Company in Blue Island, Illinois.
Thank you, Alan and team.
Yes. Alan is a gracious host to all of these wild and fun Southside cannabis events. He just has a great space for it, and he understands the plant, and so does Blue Island. So they've been very favorable to
cannabis.
Yeah,
I will have to say, Blue Island Beer Company, not only the cannabis events that they have there, just an overall great brewery, really good beer.
Good beer.
Draft cocktails, spot the fuck on.
Yep.
And they do live music with a lot of good bands and a lot of good shows. They do a lot of different shows. He
brings in some comedy acts as well, and then he has different vendor events throughout the year. He does a lot for the community. He does a lot for not just the cannabis community, the community and all.
Yeah,
That's
Alan
cool.
and team there, we appreciate you always taking care of the cannabis community and making sure that we're well taken care of, treated fairly and treated right, and we appreciate you. And what we did this weekend was the Urban Legend Cup on Sunday, which is year number 2. Mr. and Mrs. Weedman were there with our table and rolling doinks for people, and I want to say Profesh, High Focus Media, phenomenal job setting it up for year 2.
High Focus Media, really. Yeah.
Unbelievable. Great job, Maddie, Nicole, and Shayna setting it all up, and everybody else who helped you, because you have a team with the Urban Legend Cup, and that whole entire team did a phenomenal job getting everything taken care of. It was a very well-run event, very smooth on the judging, too, because this year they did it a little bit different. they actually smoked everything leading up into the event instead of trying to smoke 64 strains that day of like they did last year, which was really hard. So great job, Urban Legend Cup team and High Focus Media team. Pleasure to always work with you all. And it was a fabulous, successful event. And we had a lot of fun and we met a lot of cool people and got to see a lot of people who we've gotten to know over the years in the industry. And always great to see everybody and have fun and smoke doinks and laugh and just see the cannabis community come together and having a great time. So now let's get to the fun part. It was a contest. It's the Urban Legend Cup, and we knew a lot of the breeders and growers that were there, and there was a lot of great entries. They did an outdoor entry. I think there was 5 contestants for that. They did a non-pro. I don't remember how many people entered, but then they did the pro, and there was top 5, and we happened to know all top 5. Oh, actually, no, I didn't know one. And it was really special. Yeah. It was, I think he took 3rd, and he was just a home grower that had some fucking cojones and went up against some of the top growers that have been around for a very long time, 5, 10, 15, 20 years growing and breeding. And that person placed 3rd. Yeah. Very strong, very strong. So in the pro part of it, but I don't remember that person's name. I apologize, but I think Goat Genetics came in 5th. Our good friends Midwest Terps came in 4th, and then that home grower, which I forgot, I don't remember his name, and I do apologize for that, came in 3rd, and then I Love Green Culture came in 2nd, and then our friend Midwest Terps took home the #1 prize. Oh yeah, Midwest Terps. ENT, congratulations on
that was the pro grower category.
Yes, that was the pro grower, and they won with Dung Drop #6, was what we smoked on the show when we had them here for the recording of the Renegade session, and we smoked it on the show last week because they told us they wanted us to smoke it for the entry. I'm like, absolutely. And that strain is phenomenal. I mean, it all well deserved. But we had some also people that entered and they won some stuff. Our friend Ignius won best flavor for the the caked up cherries. Yep. Congratulations, our friend Ignius. And then a new friend that we met that I guess a longtime listener came and won best aroma, and his name is Dave. Yep. And and I don't know everybody else, so I do apologize. I didn't ask.
We couldn't hear the announcements. We couldn't leave the vendors were in a separate room from where the stage was, and we weren't able to leave our booths because we were busy, and so we couldn't get over into the room to hear who was.
Yeah, I caught the pro.
Yeah. So we would just catch people walking by with the awards kind of randomly. So we don't really know everything.
Yes, about but it was great to be a part of it. And congratulations to all the people who entered, all the people that placed in something, flavor, aroma, whatever. I don't remember. I should have asked High Focus Media what everything was.
They had solid judges, too.
Yes. Oh, really?
They had solid judges. Yeah. It was blind judging. There were a couple ganjiers that were involved in the judging. There were a couple bud tenders, I think. There were
cultivators.
Yes. There were people who understood cannabis thoroughly that judged.
And it was great to see just everybody that entered and then everybody that came out. The growers, the community, the people in the industry that work in the industry. There was a lot of people that work in the industry at dispensaries, cultivation that were there. It was great to see everyone come together. One big cloud in all the rooms. It was great to see all the clouds and all the different types of joints and weed we got to smell and look at and smoke. And I want to thank everybody also who gave us samples to smoke on the show. You know the rule. You give me a nug, I smoke it on the show. I want to thank Heisen Terps for giving us some of his bud to smoke on the show. We're gonna get to it. Yeah, we'll get to it all every week. There'll be a new strain. We'll be
Corner
smoking.
Boys. We got some from Corner Boys.
Dave gave us some too. He gave us 3 different strains to smoke. That he won one was the best aroma. Who else? Oh, Ignius. Yep, gave us 2 strains to smoke. And I want to thank everybody that threw us. Also, I would like to thank our really good friends.
Northern Heights gave
us some. And we actually did smoke the booth, the super booth, that was before bed the other night. It was actually really good. They gave us some. Thank you, Northern Heights. Thank you. What was it?
So many people.
Yeah, I like to thank Ralph Wiley, our good friends Ralph Wiley, for sponsoring the table, for giving us some of their weed, and people really enjoyed it. And I also like to thank Midwest Terps for giving us weed and sponsoring the table, and everybody truly enjoyed. I gave everybody a smell and let them pick which one they wanted, and everybody, and some people asked if they could have both, and of course I'm not going to say no. That's just me. And some people enjoyed all the strains that we were given for the table. People enjoyed, and I watched a lot of happy faces. That was great. It was so exciting, though, to watch people smell their nose and stuff like that. But I also like to thank OCB for throwing us some cones for the table, and also our good friend Briggs at Spliff Society. Yes, and Lily, thank you so much. We appreciate it for throwing stuff to the table. People really do enjoy your palms, brother. They really do. And when I watch people light the joint up and they get that taste that I always tell them, explain like that flavor of those palms and the smell of the palms along with the weed, the accent of the two go really well together. So thank you, everybody, for just being a part of something amazing for year 2, for all of us coming together in a peaceful, kind, fun, laughter way. If I didn't mention your name and I saw you, I apologize. I love you. And thank you for just being a part of our lives. Thank you for just making it fun and just wild sometimes, and just seeing everybody smiling just makes me happy. And we all come from all over the place, for this, and it was exciting to see. You got anything else to add to that, Mrs. Weedman?
I'm very high, so
Already?
I think I'm going to just be quiet for a minute.
Oh shit!
Yeah, I was zoning out there.
It did say you'll get that euphoria effect.
I don't have a headache anymore.
You don't. Yay! Weed works. Weed works. Weed works. Weed works. Yay! So, I also like to say, when we do these events and we go to these events, and it wasn't like this 20 years ago, 30 years ago,
10 years ago.
Yeah, that too.
Right.
In some states that was, but within when I was, young in my younger years, my teens, and you would go to your friend's basement, or you would go to a party and you would go behind in the woods and smoke. You never got to, and you knew who the stoner was, the burners and potheads were in your school, and then you went, and I worked in the bar industry, and we would go back by the dumpsters and or back throw out garbage, and we'd fucking hit our oneies, and then, or we had a room we were allowed to go in and smoke, or if you were smart enough, you went in the fucking beer cooler and you smoke because there's no smell. So, so it's come such a long way in my years of I've been smoking weed since I was 13. It's been a part of my life, watching my parents smoking in the basement with all their friends, and not just, there's so many stories that weed has affected my life, but to see this all come together, especially in Illinois, in the last, since recreational, since 2020 and 2021, 2022, you saw a little bit, but now you're seeing just people getting behind the plant, seeing the joy it brings to people at these events. Seeing people come from all over for these events. Some people not experience it for their first time. And you see that, and it's something special, because it's like going to Disney World for your first time. And you walk in, and it's a whole new world.
It really is.
It is. And everybody's watching each other's backs and making sure people don't green out and explaining weed. And you see some people, sometimes they're really high, and some people are just having a good time. And the music, I forgot to mention the music at Blue Iron Beer Company.
Yes.
For this event, they did nothing but jazz.
It was so nice.
Lovely.
It was a Sunday afternoon into early evening, and it was just so pleasant.
Yes.
Yeah. The setup was a little different, so we weren't in the room where the band was, so that was helpful.
Right.
We could engage in conversation more easily. It was a nice vibe.
It was nice. The music.
But you were still hearing it, and it was just great.
It was perfect.
It was great.
It was perfect on a Sunday. I didn't need that, which I love. But Sunday, we were a little hungover. We were smoking and having some fun till about 2:00 in the morning on Saturday. So I did not want to hear anything loud, and it was perfect. But even at a lot of these events, though, the music, sometimes you get some good banging DJs, which are amazing. We went to that Little Bean one time, and they had that DJ playing the drums, drum and bass at the same time while he was mixing. That was something special. We've had events too. We've had our, one of our favorite bands play, Grit and the Double Knit, which is Mr. G's band. But just the music flows with these events. The weed flows with these events. Food is something special too. And there's been some really good food at a lot of these events too. So, it all goes hand in hand. And then, there's alcohol at some of them, but it's special at Blue Iron Beer Company because it's their own beer. you know, and when you go to some bars or some events, there's beer at some of them, there's cocktails, there's mocktails, there's, you know, cannabis infused drinks. So it just the artwork that people bring, and there's some artists that come and show off their artwork too. On top of that, because all of us love art and we love music, we're all stoners, burners, and potheads, right? So we all love all those things I just mentioned. Is a stoner's favorite thing: weed, music, and it's going to be in this order: weed, music, food, friendship.
Yeah.
Right, coming together. Right? That's like a stoner's favorite thing. Art, I put art as 5, right? Culture, yeah. So, I mean, it's just, I'm just to see this all come together into these events, you know, and we're not able to always make to every single one of them. You know, we try to get to as many as we can because there is a lot now. And everyone we go to, whether we either have a vendor booth or we just show up, it's just enjoyable. I have not been to a bad one yet, you know. And they're all fun, and you see a lot of the same people now, which is the community, you know, and we've built
at the events, but yes. But there is definitely
there's new people that show up all the time,
too.
But there's people we've seen now 10 times.
But something else that I have pointed out before that I think is important to remember is that you and I and many of the people that might be listening to us, may be present in a cannabis community. Maybe not as big as what's happening in Chicago if you're like living in a smaller city, but maybe you have a place where you can go for public consumption and gatherings and events that happen near you, and you're experiencing some of these similar things that we're experiencing. But then you have to remember there's a lot of people who aren't on social media or aren't on social media looking for cannabis, but might be interested in these events or might not even realize that they exist and would enjoy them if they did. And so there's still so many people that we can't get to. We just can't get to it.
Share our show. They'll come.
Share our show, but also just, I mean, we in terms of the community, the kind of push behind the legalization and the normalization of cannabis. So we're out, we're doing these events, we're consuming in public spaces, creating parties, attending parties, et cetera, et cetera. I think there's just a whole lot more people that would really enjoy it and just have no idea it's happening.
Yeah. All are welcome. It's like the poltergeist. All are welcome. All are welcome. Come to the light. All are welcome.
Why do you remember these things? Why?
Just at the right time.
Why? Why do you have an extra brain compartment?
Come into the
fucking bullshit. You get to have all these funny things to say.
Watch the
women
movies.
Don't, but women just don't.
Women
no,
only
we gotta worry
watch.
About other shit.
But no, here.
We don't have that compartment.
Hold on, stop.
I'm telling you.
You only watch a movie once.
No, my mom told me. You got guys have an extra compartment for history and unnecessary
I do have
information.
An extra compartment, but it's not up here.
Unnecessary. Shut up. Oh my God. All right, reel it in.
But wait, I am reeling it in.
Okay.
Here's the thing.
Yes.
You only watch a movie once.
That's enough.
So there's your problem.
Right.
I've watched Caddyshack 100 times. But not 100 times.
I've probably seen it a couple times each decade.
Right. I've watched it 100 times.
I've seen it more than that.
But here,
not more than 100.
I'll give you
Poltergeist. I've seen that.
How many times?
I don't know, maybe 20, 30 times, but
really?
Half paying attention to it.
Right, that's your problem.
Catching him in
That's a classic line. That's a meme line there.
I could picture it, but I would know. Like, why can you retain that information? Tell me.
Because it's funny.
But there's so many other things your brain has to think about.
It's funny. It's fucking funny.
Fucking funny. That is fucking funny.
Right. Why do people remember? I remember so many lines from Goodfellas. There's so many good ones. And I've watched that movie.
I couldn't tell you one.
Really?
But there's some great ones.
This dog going this way, this dog going this way, and the guy's going, "What do you want from me?" That's a fucking classic line.
How many times do I say, "Why did you say that?" And you're like, "It's from a movie."
Right. Like how many times? Like, what am I, a clown? Am I here to amuse you? What movie? We just named it.
Goodfellas.
Yes.
Am I a clown? That's Ray Liotta. No.
Yes. Yeah. Well, it's Joe Pesci saying that to
Ray Liotta
because Ray Liotta called him a funny guy.
That doesn't sound like Joe Pesci, by the way, at all. But
I have a friend of mine that can do the whole banking scene, talking to the banker scene in Casino, Tony D.
my gosh.
Diamonds.
Yeah.
He can do that whole scene with the voice of Joe Pesci
Whoa.
to the fucking T.
I want to see it.
To the T. Like, I should have him on the show
Tell
just to
him
do that.
Tell him to send you a text of that.
No, it's too long. We'll have to go out for
right.
We'll have to smoke with him. He does it to the T.
Okay.
But we as men watch movies so much because of those classic lines.
Because you just want to be able to say things like that.
Just not even say things like that, but
Is it
just
like a little book
because
you
they're
write 'em in?
funny. They're funny. And
It
they
is
make you
funny.
laugh. There's so
I think
many
it's
good.
crazy.
There's
I
so
just think
many
it's plain
good
old
ones.
crazy that you're able to have room for that information.
It's stupid information. You know,
Like,
it's
what kind of
just,
stupid information do I get to remember?
ladies' underwear and bra sizes and shoe sizes and pant
Oh,
sizes
I mean, that's
and makeup patterns and
I
colors.
don't know anyone else's.
But you know your own.
Yeah, you should know your own too.
No, me?
You don't know your underwear size and your shirt size.
No,
and
you buy my underwear for me,
get
so
out
I'm
of here.
good.
Get out.
All right, you ready to start the show?
Yeah. Let's do that.
Let's do this. Oh, God, that was a good laugh. Thanks, Ignius, again, this bake. We
Yes.
appreciate you, brother.
Thank you.
For Animal Tsunami, will be another one on my list. Your GG4 and the Power Crush or the Permanent Crush. I can't remember. Yeah, Permanent Crush. And this one are 3 on my hit list. So every time I see you, I would love. We smoked 3 joints of that fucking GG4 on Saturday night.
We did.
3. And I have one. I told him I had 1 nug left. So, and we were ripped.
Yeah, but we also ate a mushroom
Oh,
chocolate
you're
bar.
telling everybody we're eating mushrooms now?
I'm confessing. I cannot tell a lie.
We'll talk about that in another episode.
Yeah.
Let's get the show started. Using marijuana is tied to lower consumption of alcohol, opioids, and other drugs, new study reveals. A new study on the impact of marijuana consumption on people's use. Excuse me, everybody. I need to get my glasses. And it's not seeing glasses, it's just a screen. So much better. Sorry, everybody. Cannabis may act as less dangerous substitute, allowing people to reduce their intake of substances such as alcohol, methamphetamine, and opioids like morphine. The survey of 23,500 people in New Zealand, yes, Auckland, asked participants about whether their use of cannabis had influence on their consumption of other substances. For the most part of it, found that marijuana use was associated with reduced frequency and quantity of the use of certain substances. Significant proportions reported cannabis use led to less than 60% less alcohol, 60%, synthetic cannabinoids, 60%, morphine, 44%, methamphetamines, 40% use. The new report says. Those who reported using less had lower frequency and amount used of other drugs. Amazing. That said, results vary by substance as well as demographics. Nearly 70% of people said cannabis had no impact on LSD, MDMA, or cocaine use. I want me some of that cocaine. That's a line from a movie. For example, 1/3 of cannabis and tobacco co-users reported using tobacco, while an even smaller minority of respondents, 1 in 5, reported that using marijuana actually led to more tobacco use. Substituting cannabis for other drugs also appears more popular among young adults, 21 to 35, who are more likely than other groups to report that cannabis lowered their consumption of alcohol and methamphetamines. Sweet. Use of marijuana by adolescents 16 to 20 years old, meanwhile, had mixed results, while the cohort being both more likely to report cannabis use, resulting in a more and less other substances used compared to having no impact, the study found. Younger adults, 21 to 25, by contrast, were more likely to say cannabis use resulted in a lower use of alcohol, methamphetamines, and MDMA. The results contribute to what's still a mixed picture in terms of whether and to what extent people are using marijuana as a substitute for other drugs, the authors noted. For example, they noted a study of U.S. college students found that following cannabis legalization, there was a reduction in binge drinking alcohol among students aged 20 or older, but not among younger students. While at the same time, other studies of U.S. college students have found no impact of other drug use. Great. Stop getting fucking binge. Stop getting so drunk that you pass out. Or for women out there, that I love to hear about not getting plastered and passing out. It's amazing. You're protecting yourself by using cannabis a little bit better and stay away from the alcohol. You know, you'll be able to be more clear in what your surroundings are. When you get drunk, you've been there, I've been there. I've been stupid drunk to where I didn't know where I was at and how I got there and how I got home. We don't need that in the world. So I like a good beer, but you don't need to get belligerently drunk to where you had to be carried home and you don't know what happened to you. You know, I've seen it happen. I worked in the bar industry for 23 years. I've seen a lot of it. Similarly, conflicting outcomes have been seen in jurisdictions that have legalized marijuana, the study points out. For instance, it says monthly purchases of alcohol, specifically wine, declined in Colorado and Washington state after the legalization of recreational cannabis, with purchases of spirits increased in Washington state but decreased in Oregon after cannabis legalization. Another study found Canada-wide monthly beer sales dropped after cannabis legalization, but there was no change in spirit sales, the report adds. In contrast, other studies of U.S. legalization, states found cannabis legalization resulted in no charge in alcohol purchases and use. Venturing to explain the association, authors wrote that when it comes to drinking, the substitution of legal cannabis for alcohol may reflect the similar neurological effects of each substance's similar social acceptability among young people. The comparable price, adding that some studies of college students have found some were motivated to use cannabis as a means to reduce the alcohol consumptions and related negative outcomes. What I just said, right? For age and related differences, the 4-person research team from Massey University College in Health in Auckland described a complicated picture involving both culture and psychology. Our mixed findings may reflect different life stages and development trajectories. The youth age cohort, 16 to 20 years, is a time of transition from adolescence to young adult, and associated with the risk-taking and novelty-seeking has been identified as a period of high risk of developing substances co-use. The next older cohort, 21 to 35, has greater neurological development and often accumulated with real-world experiences of alcohol and other drug uses, including related negative consequences of polydrug use, and hence may be more likely to consider harm reduction behavior, such as favoring substances with fewer side effects and less harmful consequences. They also pointed to another literature reviewing suggesting that cannabis and alcohol interactions may be age-dependent, suggesting that older age may moderate the level of substitution and complementary behavior. Our findings have a number of implications for harm reduction, the newspaper says. Firstly, greater access to cannabis could provide opportunities for older young adults 20 years plus to reduce excessive alcohol consumption with the age group with high prevalence of risky drinking. Cannabis may provide a lower risk option than heavy alcohol use among young adults who are in particularly in a hedonic phase of their lives. Secondly, the author says greater access to cannabis could play a part.
Hedonistic.
Thank you. In reducing, thanks for always having my back, Mrs. Weedman.
I got
reducing methamphetamine use from some individuals, either as a means to reduce the frequency of methamphetamine consumption or as a support treatment for methamphetamine-related issues. Several harm reduction studies have indicated the potential of medicinal cannabis to support reduction in the use of other drugs have a higher risk of side effects, including stimulants and prescription opioids. Harm reduction programs hoping to take advantage of these findings, the study says, could include peer and community-run programs offering free or low-cost cannabis to disadvantaged people experiencing substance use issues. Cannabis, that's why you get yourself a good fucking caregiver or learn to grow your own. Among New Zealand's indigenous Maori population, respondents were more likely to report that marijuana use reduced intake of alcohol, tobacco, methamphetamine, and LSD. It is important to note that while young adults, males, and Maori in our study were all more likely to report cannabis leading to less alcohol use, all these groups have higher baseline rates of hazardous drinking in New Zealand, the report found. Regarding efforts in the country to prioritize Maori applicants for retail cannabis business licenses, it adds, it could be argued based on our results that the provisions would not only provide Maori with the opportunity to enter the legal cannabis industry, but also provide enhanced access to legal cannabis to lower drinking and other drug use. General awareness of substitution effects is growing among not only researchers, but also market observers. A report from Bloomberg Intelligence earlier this year said the expansion of the marijuana legalization movement will continue to pose a significant threat to the alcohol industry as more people use cannabis as a substitute for alcohol. Another study out of Canada, where marijuana is federally legal, found that legalization was associated with a decline in beer sales, suggesting a substitution effect. The analysts compare with the recent survey data that more broadly looked at American views on marijuana versus alcohol. For example, a Gallup survey found that respondents view cannabis as less harmful than alcohol, tobacco, and nicotine vapes, and more adults now smoke cannabis than smoke cigarettes. A separate survey released by the American Psychiatric Association and Morning Consult last June also found that the Americans consider marijuana to be significantly less dangerous than cigarettes, alcohol, and opioids, and they say cannabis is like addictive than each of those substances as well as technology. Oh, interesting. Additionally, a poll released in July found that more Americans smoke marijuana on a daily basis than drink alcohol every day. Hell yeah, go cannabis. And that alcohol drinkers are more likely to say they would benefit from limiting their use than cannabis consumers are. Similarly, a separate study published in May in the Journal of Addiction that similarly found that there was more U.S. adults who use marijuana daily than who drink alcohol every day. Outside of alcohol, a recent study also found that marijuana has a great deal of potential to treat opioid use disorder. And lastly, upon a review of the literature, it is reasonable to conclude that cannabis has some efficiency in setting the opiate maintenance as well as other therapeutic uses. That paper said, in light of public concerns over opioid overdoses and possibility of marijuana being rescheduled, it added, there is a distinct possibility that cannabis use and harm reduction models will increase. That was great. Marijuana moment, man. They kill it. Sleepy weed. Sleepy weed shown to significantly improve sleep. And now we've talked about this cannabinoid and we've talked about sleepy weed before and other cannabinoids to help with sleep. But this one is like one of the fan favorites now. Mm-hmm. It's probably right up there now with THC, CBD. What's this one? CBN. Tell us about it, Mrs. Weedman.
Yes. For the first time, there's scientific evidence that a smaller, lesser-known component of the cannabis plant, cannabinol, delivers better quality and longer sleep. It paves the way for finally having an effective sleep aid sourced from medical cannabis that's comparable to existing medications. Researchers from the University of Sydney's Lambert Initiative have provided much-needed scientific evidence that backs anecdotal claims that an accumulation of cannabinol, or CBN, in older plants has a sleep-inducing effect. It's a major compound in the plant and far less understood and studied than tetrahydrocannabinol, or THC, and cannabidiol, CBD. For decades, cannabis folklore has suggested that aged cannabis makes consumers sleepy via the buildup of CBN. However, there was no convincing evidence for this, said lead author Jonathan Arnold, professor and director of preclinical research at the Lambert Initiative. Our study provides the first objective evidence that CBN increases sleep, at least in rats, by modifying the architecture of sleep in a beneficial way. Ooh. In this animal study, the team monitored sleeping rats' brain patterns to specifically assess non-rapid eye movement, or NREM, and rapid eye movement, REM. NREM sleep is a key restorative stage, also important in sustaining memory functions, while REM sleep, where dreams take place, is needed for emotional processing and brain health. CBN was found to increase both NREM and REM sleep, leading to increased total sleep time with a comparable effect to known sleep drug zolpidem, Arnold said. Zolpidem, best known by the brand name of Ambien, is a heavy sedative that has been known to cause nocturnal behaviors such as sleepwalking and sleep eating. It can also cause next-day brain fog and drowsiness. While CBN's parent molecule is the hallucinogenic THC, the researchers found that this cannabinoid only weakly activated the CB1 cannabinoid receptors in the brain and did not result in intoxication. However, it did impact the areas of the brain involved in sleep, boosting REM and non-REM sleep. This provides the first evidence that CBN indeed increases sleep using objective sleep measures, said Arnold. It was a surprise that CBN metabolism in the body can yield a much greater effect on cannabinoid CB1 receptors than the parent molecule CBN, which has much more limited activity. As the researchers noted in the study, CBN increased sleep stability as evidenced by longer duration NREM sleep bouts. This is significant, as increased sleep stability has been associated with improved subject sleep quality. The findings suggest that CBN may be best suited for patients who have trouble staying asleep or experiencing early morning awakening insomnia, because it delivers a delayed onset of sleep but is far more enduring than zolpidem. That's a weird name. Our study is unique because we provide data on the effects of CBN as a single molecule, the researchers noted. Most human studies that have assessed CBN's effects on sleep combine CBN with other phytocannabinoids and have failed to assess whether CBN has hypnotic effects alone. More focus on CBN is expected to follow this animal study, with the results of parallel human trials led by Lambert Initiative due to be published soon. Our research encourages further basic and clinical research on CBN as a new treatment strategy for sleep disorders, including insomnia, said McGregor, the lead researcher. Our clinical study only administered CBN on a single occasion. A trial on a larger scale that includes repeated dosing is the logical next step. So we'll be watching for more future studies. That's pretty interesting because, yeah, I never thought about that because it's always in a blend with CBD and or THC.
Right.
So I've never been able to determine, like, is there a
Placebo?
yes,
Yes.
or does it? Is there a hallucinogenic part? Is it like THC? Does it affect? But they're saying it doesn't. Yeah.
I know I know some people that take like 50 milligrams of CBN. And they've told me they felt like they were on mushrooms.
Right. But that's a high dose.
Right, a high dose.
Right.
Now I've taken 10 milligrams of CBN, and I it doesn't do well for me. I like a 5. 10. I've had some nightmares. I've woken
But
up.
I like the fact that in this study they're isolating it.
Right.
So you're taking it with THC.
THC. Right.
So it'll be interesting to see what they're able to determine about it.
I'd like to
by
get some
itself.
just straight CBN.
Yeah.
Just to try that
Yeah.
alone and see
And just see.
how it, without smoking any flower
Yeah.
before bed, on a night, and just like see what it does. I've never just done straight CBN before. I've taken straight CBD before, but never just straight CBN. We know some people that make tinctures of just straight of mixtures, but I wonder if they can make us just a straight CBN one. It'd be kind of dope to just try. So, hey, before we
What?
go to the next article, let's light this joint up with our new lighter. Our new
Oh,
lighter.
yeah.
Our new lighters
I'm gonna get one.
that our friend Mike made for us.
Thank you.
And he gave them to us at the Urban Legend Cup.
With the
Thanks,
Weedman
Mike.
logo
Appreciate
on
it.
it.
Yep, purple and a green one.
With the weed man.
Yes. So I was waiting to be able to throw him a shout out for making us some cool
Thank
ass
you, Mike.
lighters when we were going to relight our joint again. So, but as Mrs. Weedman lights that joint, the occupations with the highest rates of cannabis use. I already knew this one. I already knew
Cool.
because,
I'm lighting myself on fire over
You're
here.
right there.
I'm good.
I already knew when I first saw this article come out. I already said it in my head. I'm like, it's bartenders and people in the fucking food waiters, bartenders, people in the service industry. I already knew it, and we'll go into the article. But I was 100% spot on that one. So, a recent study investigating the rates of cannabis use by workers in different occupations have found that employees in food service and hospitality industries were most likely to report recent marijuana use. The research, thank you.
Good stuff.
Yes,
Ignius.
the research, which analyzed Federal Health Survey data collected over 5 years, also found that workers in arts, design, entertainment, sports, media, construction, and extraction occupations will also likely report higher rates of cannabis use compared to employees in different occupations. Occupations that reported the lowest rates of marijuana use included law enforcement, healthcare providers, and professionals working in education and libraries. I know a lot of teachers that like to smoke the weeds. A lot of teachers like to smoke the weeds. They need it. We found, and they're probably going, shh, Mr. Weedman, shh. We found wide variations in cannabis use across industries and occupations, ranging from 0.5% among law enforcement workers to 29.7% among tour and travel guides, the authors of the study wrote. The study from the Centers of Disease Control and Prevention analyzed data from the CDC's behavioral risk factor surveillance collected between 2016 and 2020. The researchers included responses only from those who worked for wages, were self-employed, and who were been unemployed for less than 1 year. The study, which was published online last month by the peer-reviewed American Journal of Public Health, included data from 128,615 people. That's a lot of people in 15 states too.
Wow,
That's a big.
That's a good slice.
Yeah, that's a good one. Including Alaska, Florida, Colorado, Georgia, Idaho, Illinois, Maryland, Minnesota, Mississippi, Montana, New Hampshire, North Dakota, Rhode Island, South Carolina, and Tennessee. There's a few on there that that aren't legal in their states. Good for you. Stick it to the main. By industry, the 3 sectors with the highest reported rates of cannabis use were combinations of food and service at 20.7%. Arts, entertainment, and recreation, 17.5%. Construction, 15.9%. The study reads. The 3 industry groups with the lowest are companies and enterprises, management of companies and enterprises at 5.4%. You probably need it all the most. Public administration at 3.7%, and utilities at 3.4%. The research also analyzed the data by occupation groups and found that the 3 groups with the highest prevalence of marijuana use were food preparations and serving rate at 21.9%. Oh, yeah. Arts, design. I did not know a chef that didn't smoke weed when I worked in the industry. And I didn't know a waiter, bartender that didn't smoke weed where I worked. Arts, design, entertainment, sports, and media was at 17%. Construction at 15.5%, and it continues. The overall weighted prevalence of past 30-day cannabis use in 15 states was approximately 10.7% for workers aged 18 years or older, the researchers wrote in their conclusion. The authors noted that the study findings are fairly consistent with the data in the 2021 National Survey of Drug and Health, which found that 13% of respondents aged 12 and over reported using marijuana in the past month. Our lower estimates might be a result of restricting the analysis to employed adults that research noted. Furthermore, sample included 19 states that had legalized cannabis for non-medical use. Only 2 of the 15 states in our sample had legalized non-medical cannabis during the full study period. Crazy. Mm-hmm. The authors added that the study findings offer what they characterize as baseline data on cannabis use by industry and occupation, which can help frame future policy discussions and research. Let me just say before we go on to the next article, that one hit me the most. Only 2 of the 15 states in our sample had legalized non-medical cannabis during the full study period. You know what that tells me? That the people want it, and the governments just keep on hiding it from us, especially during those years too. And now you're seeing more states legalize, of course, medical and recreational. But it's still, if all those states that we mentioned, legal or non-legal states, only 2 were legal, and the ones we mentioned. Mm-hmm. Okay. So what does that tell you? And that percentage, they surveyed 128,615 people that smoked weed in all those states.
They want it.
Yeah. We'll end on that. They want it. We want it. Hormones.
Get the laws out of the way, right?
Hormones.
Yep.
Hormones.
So this is a little bit, we have been doing in our health series, or section of our show, we've been doing a lot about ailments and health conditions that are being found to benefit from the use of cannabis. So I think last week, I don't remember what the topic was, but it was something, and it had to do with hormones, and I felt questionable about reporting it because hormones, I think, are kind of uncharted territory. I don't want to misinform people, So I thought we should really learn a little bit more about that.
And you found this other article.
Yeah, so yes. So this is kind of to play off of some health articles we did last week. And this is how cannabis affects hormones, because we have an endocannabinoid system and we have a hormone system. And sometimes these things talk together and against each other and for each other. And it's a lot. So, hormones are neurotransmitters, and this means that they are chemical messengers which carry instructions to organs and tissue to carry out certain functions. Hormones are produced by various glands in our bodies, with the main hormone-producing gland being the pituitary gland. Hormones are essential for a wide range of functions, such as growth, regulating blood sugar levels, the reproductive cycle, and mood. The network of glands that secrete hormones is known as the endocrine system. Cannabis affects our hormones. As with many other medicines, cannabis can make our bodies produce more hormones or less. That's crazy. Depending on whether you are using CBD or THC-heavy products. Sometimes these hormone changes can have a positive medical impact, but sometimes the changes can be harmful. That's why it's crucial to understand how cannabis affects our hormones. The endocannabinoid system is linked to every receptor system in our bodies. Whether it's dopamine, serotonin, or opioid receptors, cannabinoids can talk to them and exert their influence in ways both subtle and overt. This includes our hormones and the endocrine system. However, hormones are complicated, and we do not understand how cannabis and the endocannabinoid system interact with the endocrine system in any significant detail. We do know that cannabis interacts with it, though, as it affects the production of hormones like insulin, testosterone, and estrogen. The effects can be positive or negative. To give a practical example, with estrogen-positive breast cancer, too much THC may be best avoided, as it can increase estrogen levels. CBD may be a better choice in such instance, but we shouldn't necessarily get rid of THC entirely. This is because THC has many cancer-beating properties. Therefore, it is hugely important to match the THC-CBD ratio to the type of cancer you're treating. But it's complicated, and everybody is different. Here's what we know so far. Cannabis and the hypothalamus pituitary adrenal, or the HPA axis. The HPA axis is perhaps one of the most well-known hormonal systems. The HPA is most often associated with fight or flight and stress. It is what produces cortisol. Cortisol helps control blood sugar levels. It regulates metabolism, reduces inflammation, blood pressure via salt and water regulation, and assists memory formation. However, having high cortisol levels produced by your body can be harmful. The negative feedback loops that prevent too much cortisol from being produced become less effective, which is a significant problem in post-traumatic stress disorder. Both THC and CBD can reduce the amount of cortisol produced by lowering the body's response to stress. Too much THC can increase cortisol levels after use, so it is essential to be careful with some medical conditions. Those who are just starting off using cannabis should microdose THC, as small doses can decrease anxiety, but large doses can increase anxiety. Microdosing THC is therefore extremely important to treat anxiety. Another hormone released by the HPA axis is adrenaline. It is also lowered in production with THC use. This dampens the fight or flight response, and this can lead to slower reactions. Serotonin is released by the HPA axis, and it regulates your mood, memory, sleep, digestion, and some muscular functions. Low serotonin levels can cause agitation, migraine, insomnia, and carbohydrate cravings, and high serotonin levels can cause agitation, confusion, and sedation. Keeping serotonin levels in balance is important for treating anxiety, depression, and PTSD. Wow, I didn't know all of that.
Not until I read this article.
I know, same. THC helps treat anxiety, PTSD, and other associated disorders when used long term. This is because the sustained release of cortisol blunts the stress response and decreases cortisol production. Long-term THC use stops the morning spike of cortisol, called cortisol awakening response, or CAR, which is one reason why you can feel the sleepy effects of THC upon awakening. This also makes using THC effective for the treatment of insomnia. CBD can lower cortisol levels, but is not necessarily as helpful as THC and CBN in treating insomnia. Then we have the cannabis mixed with the hypothalamus pituitary thyroid axis, or the HPT. The HPT axis is responsible for maintaining metabolic rate, heart and digestive functions, muscle control, brain development, and bone health. The thyroid gland releases two main hormones, thiodothronine, T3, and thyroxine. That's not right. T4.
I still gave you the right person the article to read, though, because I would have butchered the hell out of those words.
The HPT axis is essential for controlling our body's metabolism, including regulating the body's internal core temperature, weight, hair, and skin. THC can inhibit the TSH or thyroid stimulating hormone level. Low circulating TSH levels can lead to symptoms associated with hypothyroidism, such as fatigue, weight gain, and intolerance to the cold, decreased libido, depression, and an abnormal menstrual cycle. You can diminish many of these negatives by using cannabinoids like CBD and low doses of tetrahydrocannabivarin, THCV. Struggling there. It is also worth remembering that reducing TSH levels is not always a negative. Cannabis users generally have a lower body mass index compared to non-cannabis users, so weight gain is not usually an issue. Many find that the stress-relieving properties of cannabis increase their libido. A mixture of THC and CBD at the correct dosage may help improve the mood and not cause depression. Some women also find that cannabis is beneficial for PMS and menstrual cramps, and there's very little evidence showing that it causes any abnormal menstrual cycles. And then we have the cannabis and hypothalamus pituitary gonadal axis, or the HPG axis, and this plays a vital role in maintaining optimal functioning and health of all tissue throughout the body. The HPV axis also oversees the body's functions related to reproductive health. THC can reduce hormone levels in the HPG axis and lead to infertility in both men and women. THC can slow follicle maturation, not sure, in women, which can lead to changes in the menstrual cycle. During ovulation, the body releases anandamide, and using THC can cause an excess of endocannabinoid production that disrupts the menstrual cycle. Now, this may sound frightening to some, but for those suffering from PMS, using a combination of THC and CBD may reduce pain, cramps, and headaches or migraines. THC has also been shown to decrease LH levels and testosterone in men, reducing sperm motility and sperm's ability to achieve conception. Testosterone is also helpful for increasing muscle and bone mass and body hair growth, and insufficient testosterone can lead to bone and muscle mass loss. Interestingly, research has identified that frequent cannabis users have lower prolactin levels in their blood plasma. Prolactin inhibits FSH and GnRH, which is another way in which menstrual cycles and testosterone production are affected. Then we have cannabis and the growth hormone, GH, axis. It's also known as insulin-like growth factor, or IGF-1 axis. The GH-IGF axis produces the growth hormone somatotropin and insulin. Somatotropin stimulates growth, cell reproduction, cell regeneration, and boosting metabolism. Insulin regulates blood glucose levels by absorbing glucose into the liver, fat, and skeletal muscles. The GH axis is also involved in the regulation of brain development, including neurogenesis and neuroprotection. Cannabis, particularly cannabinoids like CBD, CBG, and THCV, can help improve insulin sensitivity, allowing for sugar to be processed more readily. Cannabis can boost metabolism, which can prevent weight gain. Cannabinoids like CBD and THCV have been beneficial for treating diabetes and neuropathic pain. THC, CBD, and THCV can be very useful in promoting brain cell growth or neurogenesis in older people. The endocannabinoid system is intimately linked with all of these hormone axes, and it's with the GH axis that this link is perhaps most apparent. It can be tempting to think that cannabis can harm hormonal systems, which is inaccurate, as endocannabinoid dysregulation can cause hormonal dysregulation, and this can lead to PMS, migraines, cancer, diabetes, PTSD, anxiety, depression, and many more health problems. Also, most focus in research is on THC. THC binds to and affects CB1 receptors, which can cause changes in hormone levels. Other cannabinoids like CBD have less direct effects, and we know less about how CBD and other cannabinoids affect various hormones. It seems evident that having a mixture of cannabinoids and terpenes can help mitigate some of the adverse effects THC can have on hormones, while also retaining some of its benefits.
Really good article. Yeah. I'd like to say it was written by Deepak Hemraj, head of research and education, and the content was reviewed by Dr. Louis Jassy. Phenomenal work, gentlemen.
That was great.
Yeah, really
and
good.
I think it's important that was overlooked by, I felt better sharing it because it was reviewed by a physician.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, and that was reflecting the last article we read in the last episode too. So we wanted to do more research on this just to learn more for ourselves, but also help other people learn, right? That's part of the show.
That's right.
We learn to help others learn. Joint rolling experts reveal which pre-rolls people like and maybe not to stay away from. A lot of G's, that have been in the industry for a long time or been doing it in the legacy grow or traditional market grow will not touch a pre-roll. They just have their reasons, but
that's fair.
I like a good pre-roll. It's just
when
easy.
It's filled with good weed.
Yes, there you go. Or when Mrs. Weedman rolls one for me. In a world of cannabis, not all pre-rolls are created equal. While they've become a staple on dispensary shelves, there's a crucial detail that often overlooked, whether those joints are rolled or stuffed. Although cone stuffing and knock boxes are common mass production methods, rolled pre-rolls deliver a better experience hands down. Why rolled joints outshine stuffed cones? The biggest advantage of rolled pre-rolls is in the flower quality. Rolling allows producers to work with fresh, sticky flower instead of dry, low-quality filler that often ends up in your pre-roll, as I was kind of saying a minute ago. And filler isn't even a misrepresentation. It's literally material used to fill a pre-made cone. Many of today's pre-rolls use trim, shake, or over-dried flour simply because it's easier to manipulate into the cone at scale. In contrast, rolled pre-rolls can be made with flour that keeps its structure, moisture intact, enhancing the flavor, burn, and effect. So, see, there are Northern Heights, they gave us, didn't they say they hand roll everything?
Do.
Yeah. With rolled joints, producers can also use a coarser grind. This material burns slower and more evenly, resulting in a smoother smoking experience. For consumers, this translates to better quality overall. For producers, rolling opens up more options for customization, including the type of tips or filters they use. Rolled pre-rolls allow flexibility to cater specific pre-roll characteristics like airflow, cooling, or even eco-friendly options. This versatility enhances pre-roll experience in a way that pre-manufactured cones simply can't match. The smoking experience, rolled joints versus stuffed cones. Anyone who's experienced the frustrations of canoeing joint, we all have, a pre-roll that burns unevenly down one side, knows how it impacts the entire session. Canoeing is common with stuffed cones where the shape and often too fine filler results in an uneven burn. Too fine filler results in an uneven burn. So you're grinding it too fine. Rolled joints, however, are compact in a way that ensures consistent density and airflow from end to end. With a rolled joint, you provide hot spots that create harsh smoke, allowing the flower's natural flavors and effects to come through. Beyond consistency, rolled joints deliver a better burn rate. Stuffed cones are often packed too tightly at one end and too loosely at the other, leading to clogging and uneven airflow. Rolled joints, on the other hand, are created to mimic the even distribution and texture of a hand-rolled joint, ensuring a smooth, consistent hit every time. Roll Pros calls the patented method radical compaction. The result is a joint that burns evenly, doesn't clog, and maintains the integrity of the flower's effects. Interesting. The value of rolled pre-rolls for consumers. One of the most compelling reasons to choose rolled pre-rolls over stuffed cones is the value it brings. Producing rolled pre-rolls from paper bobbins instead of pre-made cones can save producers up to 80% in consumable cost. For context, a bobbin is simply a roll of paper, like your home's toilet paper. For cannabis brands, these savings are substantial, and they can pass them on to the consumers in the form of better quality and competitive prices. Aha, someone's getting smart. Recent data from the pre-roll market highlights the increasing popularity of pre-rolls as consumers demand more consistent, higher quality experiences. Yes, pre-rolls have done $4.1 billion. We deserve higher quality weed in our hand-rolled joints, right? Hand pre-rolled, right?
Yeah.
Is that what you would call it, right? We deserve, we're spending money. And you're giving for those out there that are giving us good quality flower in a pre-roll, kudos to you. For those out there who are just taking the bottom, the swill, the just the shake and the shit, thanks, appreciate you. Oh, where did I leave off? As awareness of this product differentiation grows, we expect the demand for rolled joints to climb. Sustainability and reducing waste. Beyond the quality and value, rolled pre-rolls have potentially to offer the most sustainable choice. Cones used in stuffing machines are typically mass-produced overseas by hand and shipped across the globe, leaving a hefty carbon footprint. The materials and manufacturers process used in cone production add an environmental cost that often overlooked in the industry. Rolled pre-rolls, by contrast, are made from paper bobbins, reducing both material waste and the environmental impact associated with transportation and storage. For eco-conscious consumers, it's a pretty simple proposition. Choosing a rolled pre-roll over a cone stuffed joint supports a shift toward locally sourced, less environmentally taxing materials and supply chains. A better choice for the future of cannabis. This is a big statement. Rolled pre-rolls represent the next step forward in the cannabis quality and sustainability. From a smoother, more flavorful smoking experience to cost and environmental benefits, rolled joints bring undeniably advantages to the table. So next time you're at a dispensary, ask for pre-rolls that are rolled, not stuffed. Friends, don't let friends settle for less than a quality joint.
That's right.
Great article by Green State. Oh, man. Health and wellness benefits of marijuana are primary draw for women, this poll finds. Yep. While price, though, is still a little bit of a concern.
Yep.
Tell us about it, Ms. Weedman.
For women in the United States, health and wellness are among the leading motivators to try cannabis products or use them more frequently, according to a newly released poll exploring what women want from weed. When it comes to picking between cannabis products, meanwhile, price is by far the leading factor. Among all women 21 and older who participated in the new YouGov poll, the top 6 reasons given for what would encourage them to try cannabis products or use them more frequently were all therapeutic. They included the potential to improve sleep quality, manage pain and discomfort, promote relaxation, replace prescription and over-the-counter medications, improve focus, and manage depression and anxiety. When it comes to what would make a woman consider cannabis, the YouGov report says, health benefits are a primary draw. Improving sleep quality is a top reason for 16%. Another 14% are interested in seeing if cannabis could manage or alleviate physical pain. Meanwhile, 1 in 8 respondents listed relaxation as a chief motivator, with similar proportions pointing to weed as a possible medication alternative or a tool to help improve focus and attention. The poll surveyed about 2,000 women overall and has a margin at about 2%, a YouGov spokesperson told Marijuana Moment. Respondents were able to select as many responses as were applicable. Notably, about 1/3 of women surveyed, or 32%, said that none of the listed reasons would encourage them to try cannabis or use it more frequently, while 15% responded that they already used cannabis products. Only 7% of women said that they would be more likely to try cannabis if they had more knowledge of its effects or were guided by an expert. The YouGov poll, published this week, also asked the subset of women who already used cannabis why they might choose one cannabis product over another. On that front, Price was far and away the leading motivator, with 70% of the respondents saying it would persuade them to buy one cannabis product over another. More than 36% of women also cited product sales or promotions. Nearly half also said they'd choose one product over another based on the description of effects, while 26 pointed to bud tender guidance or recommendations at the point of purchase. Premium ingredients were also important to 36%, while 17% said they'd be more motivated to buy a particular cannabis product because it's organic. As far as why women who use cannabis do so, the survey found that for 70%, relaxation and for 69%, sleep improvement remained dominant factors. While pain relief is a motivator for 53% of women, nearly half reported using cannabis products to address depression or anxiety, the report says. Roughly 41% say they use cannabis products as a substitute for traditional prescriptions or over-the-counter drugs. Personal enjoyment was reason enough for 39% and enhanced focus for 29%. And for 29%, cannabis enhanced their social experiences. 22% found it supported mindfulness practices, and 9 said it aided in physical training or exercise. Regarding what products women are using, cannabis flower still reigns supreme, with 80% of respondents saying they smoke cannabis flower. Edibles were a close second at 74%, followed by extracts for vaping or dabbing at 59%. There were some more, like they went down to like every little type of product. But one last impactful stat, and a great one, is that 15% of women who consume cannabis said they consume homegrown flower. That's great.
What's your favorite flower, Ms. Weedman?
Homegrown flower.
Homegrown.
Among those cannabis consumers, 23% already said that they had a medical marijuana card, while another 23% said they planned to obtain one. Asked about how much they typically spend, 34% said they spend less than $50 per month on their cannabis, while 20% said they spend between $50 and $100, with shopping groups reporting higher spending, including about 5% who pay over $250 a month, the YouGov report says. As a growing body of research suggests that cannabis can be helpful in treating some sex-specific conditions, a study published this summer found that cannabis is the most effective way for women with endometriosis to manage their symptoms. A separate research published earlier this year found that CBD appeared to alleviate menstrual-related symptoms such as irritability, anxiety, stress, and other measures when compared to participants' baseline measures. Depression scores, however, did not change. An earlier study similarly called CBD-infused tampons a promising option to treat menstrual pain. Meanwhile, a number of U.S. states are considering adding female orgasmic disorder, or FOD, as a qualifying condition for medical marijuana.
That's great.
And what supporters say is a response to a growing body of research suggesting cannabis can improve orgasmic frequency, ease, and satisfaction in people with FOD.
Guaranteed.
Movie quote. Yeah. A 2020 study in the journal Sexual Medicine found that women who used cannabis often had better sex. Woot woot. And because past findings indicated women who have sex with men are typically less likely to orgasm than their partners, authors of a study in the Journal of Cannabis Research said cannabis can potentially close the orgasm inequality gap. Meanwhile, women,
cannabis.
How about it? Meanwhile, women are being prosecuted by law enforcement across the country for using cannabis while pregnant, according to a recent report from a reproductive rights organization. So there's a lot going on around here, from wellness to outdated laws. Let's just hope new laws favor us using natural medicine to improve our health.
There we go.
Yes.
Natural medicine to what?
Improve health.
Health. Our health. because
That's
there's
right.
angels in those leaves.
Yes. Yes, Mr. Weedman.
Political state business news. Governor Pritzker joins DPI to launch Cannabis Research Institute. Illinois Governor Pritzker launched the Cannabis Research Institute, the CRI, at the University of Illinois Discovery Partners Institute. CRI will study cannabis' scientific, economic, and social impacts, guiding policy on public health, equity, and consumer safety. It is funded by $7 million from the Illinois Department of Human Services. CRI also aims to support an equitable cannabis industry and deepen public understanding. Research areas include cannabis agriculture, medicinal use, and social equity. Community engagement will help shape future research priorities. New Buffalo, Michigan, could hurt Illinois marijuana sales. You think it's not? This is not new news. This has been a few years now. New Buffalo has been hurting Illinois sales. You got 25,000 dispensaries in that little 2-horse town there, and we know New Buffalo well. We've been there many a times, and not even really to buy weed. We had family that lived there, right? Right. So, but cannabis mega stores in New Buffalo, Michigan, just 70 miles from downtown Chicago, are luring Illinoisans, pot consumers, to Harbor County with relatively cheap prices, freebies, large parking lots, and big product selections. Why does it matter? Last year, Illinois collected $417 million in cannabis taxes, which supports state departments of health, agriculture, and state police, as well as communities harmed by the war on drugs. Illinois Department of Financial Professional Regulation spokesman Chris Selby told Axios. But Illinois year-over-year cannabis sales dropped in September. It's one of the slowest months of the year, guys. From $139 million in 2023 to $136 million in 2024, making the first slippage since the state legalized recreational use in 2020. New Buffalo's recent explosion of less expensive cannabis stores could further endanger the tax revenue by tempting Illinoisans to cross state line. What are they saying? Michigan continues to be a big challenge. This came from a CEO of New Era Cannabis, which operates several stores in Illinois, tells Crane Chicago. People are driving to Michigan to purchase. We're seeing price compression as there are more operators open here. We're all competing for a smaller piece of the pie. State of play. Michigan legalized weed in 2019, but New Buffalo didn't start accepting dispensary applications until April of 2023. In less than a year, the vacation town found itself with about 50 applicants, leading to an emergency application halt in March. New Buffalo has granted at least 24 preliminary approvals, and 7 shops already open in the township of about 2,500 people. So everybody from Indiana and everybody that lives along this border here of Illinois goes there too, for mostly because of the taxes and the prices. But I mean, eventually Indiana will go legal, and you're going to lose unless you like drop your prices even more. And I don't know how you can afford it, but in less than a year, we talked about that. New Buffalo has granted 24. Monica's trip on a recent Monday visit to Jars Cannabis in New Buffalo. The 50-car parking lot was full of vehicles bearing Illinois and Indiana license plates. It's just like Wisconsin. Everybody coming to all those right over the border there. You see nothing but Wisconsin plates in parking lots too. So at a check-in, I was asked for my driver's license and phone number and told to wait to get into the shopping area would be at least 25 minutes. Damn. I motored down US 12 to the smaller farmhouse wellness dispensary where the wait was just 2 minutes. Price differences. This one gummy at 100 milligram was $14 in the New Buffalo plus 10% excise tax and 6% sales tax. At this other dispensary here in Chicago, that same gummy is $26 plus 20% excise tax and a 16% recreational tax base. Wow. Think we're all getting robbed here in this fucking state? There's a reality check. Transporting weed back to Illinois means driving at least 48 miles through Indiana, where pot possession is illegal. But it's unclear if or how often Indiana police are catching travelers with marijuana. Indiana State Police told Axios reports for marijuana charges are considered investigatory records and thus exempt from public disclosure under Indiana code. The bottom line, New Buffalo pot stores can be convenient and cheap, but shopping there could rob Illinois with much-needed tax revenue and potential get you in trouble with the Indiana Police. Much-needed tax revenue. You got $47 million off of cannabis. One sweet thing, though, the explosion of pot shops in New Buffalo area coincided this summer with the opening of the town's very first rainbow cone shop.
Hey.
Coincidence? I think not. Yeah, I don't want to take too long on that subject here. I've seen this industry for a very long time here in Illinois, since med, and now going into our 5th year of recreational. We went rec here in Illinois in January 1st of 2020, and I've seen prices where they started, and I see prices where they are now. And first and foremost, right now, all I see in this state is it's a volume grab. People trying to sell as much as they possibly can and giving you the cheapest price possible. Be able to draw you to their brand. I will tell you this, it's not sustainable. The price compression in this state has gone down so fast to compete with all the openings and all the new brands that have come in this state, competing with people going to Missouri now on one end because you might find prices cheaper with taxes, or going to Michigan because prices, no one wants to pay. I just read the 20-something% tax, 36% tax you're paying here in Illinois. And the Illinois government's complaining on $400-something million isn't enough. $414 million isn't enough. I want to curse, but you don't deserve that anyway. But when you see where this state has gone, and in Michigan it wasn't like that either years ago. When I started going there and buying weed before Illinois went recreational, and I would be driving through that state, I'd stop at a dispensary and there was reciprocity there. They took your med card here in Illinois, and the prices were really good. Mm-hmm. But our med prices here in Illinois were good too. So it was kind of comparable. I mean, it was a few bucks difference maybe, in gummy prices back then. And this is 2017, 2018, 2019. But now you see what's happening in Illinois mirroring what the older states on the West Coast, which is just a shit show there in pricing. And then you have Michigan and what they're doing. Now you see it happening in Illinois fast. I've never seen price compression so fast and go backwards in my whole entire life in an industry. I will say this to anybody's face. None of you know how to make money. I'm sorry to say it. Real money, consistent money. To have to give a product away at the price point that you're doing, it's all, like I said, a volume play. I don't understand. If you charged just a good price from the beginning, Illinois, and our taxes were correct, everybody would be profitable in this industry. There is a lot of profit to be made. Your margins now are shrinking. The cultivators' margins are shrinking. Dispensary margins are shrinking because everybody now is fighting for that piece of that pie. Mm-hmm. So to me, all you're doing is degrading yourself as a brand. You're degrading cannabis. The consumer is happy, of course, because they're getting product, but also your quality is going down because you have to make cheaper product because you're giving your product away. 20% discounts, 30% discounts, 40% discounts, 50% discounts, just to get people to come to your store or to try your brand. It's not sustainable. We've already seen in this state, in a very early part of the game, dispensaries already shutting down, people not able to have the money to buy product, people not have the money to pay for product.
Because if you can't sustain for the long run, you can't do it in the short term. It's not feasible.
No, unless you sell your license, and then because I heard Illinois is possibly going to allow you to own 20 dispensaries.
Well,
because dispensaries can't open, there's no money being given. There's not enough people to have $2 million to get a store up and running. Or
right. You can't use a bank for a loan.
There is some banks giving money.
Not many.
808 to be exact that are giving money to cannabis companies, but that's probably the bigger ones that are showing they can maybe pay it back in some amount of time. It's just a shame. Is what I'm getting at here.
Yes.
This was an industry we all could be profitable at. This is an industry that wasn't just for the mega rich to get wealthy on, because they don't give a shit about the plant. Bottom line, we're profits and margins to everybody. The consumer is. Even the dispensaries are. Mm-hmm. To the larger corporations that are taking over. It's a shame.
Well, the bigger problem is that we have federal laws preventing commerce.
Interstate commerce too.
Right.
could help out a lot.
But
The interstate commerce is great. But if a state has a cannabis, you're legal in your state only cares about one thing: the tax revenue they're getting from you. They don't give a fuck if you close your business. They don't give a fuck if what happens.
What's
to your
happening
business.
makes sense. Well,
Basically, in the palm of their hand, you know what it says? Fuck you, pay me. Mm-hmm. That's what it says. I look at this industry as a whole right now, and I just see so many failures, and it's upsetting because it's not supposed to be like that compared to what we just went to on a Sunday at the Urban Legend Cup. Mm-hmm. You know, I just hope we can make it come around and get better and learn, and mom and pop shops open up better, make more money. We support the mom and pop shops, not just going to an MSO, a larger corporation, which is nothing wrong with them. That they're part of the industry, but I support mom and pop all day long, and I don't get ruled by sales. I look for quality and what I like. You know me, I don't give a fuck if it's on sale or not. If I'm going to buy it because I like it. And I know a lot of people out there don't want to pay $30 for gummies or $25 for gummies or $60 for an eighth when they can buy now $20 eighths here in Illinois.
Right.
You know, or I'm actually seeing $30, $40 on sale quarters. You know, it's like, it's just, you know, well, we'll see what happens. We'll see. The strong will survive. So let's move on. Missouri Appeals Court rejects extra pot tax imposed by counties. Missouri Appeal Court has ruled that counties cannot impose an additional sales tax on recreational marijuana in areas where cities have already enacted the tax. A federal agency grants $8.4 million to a hemp company to produce sustainable cannabis-based alternatives for building and for buildings and car parts. Finally, our tax dollars, grant dollars, going to something cool. The U.S. Department of Energy awarded $8.4 million in hemp couture, a hemp startup to develop sustainable cannabis-based materials for construction and automotive industries. Good for them. The New York Cannabis Office approved 6 months of extension for CORD provisional licenses. The New York Office of Cannabis Management extended conditional adult use recreational dispensary CORD provisional licenses by 6 months. This applies to applicants with previous marijuana convictions seeking to open recreational stores. Thanks, New York. District of Columbia cannabis stores sue officials over enforcement efforts. A group of 7 recreational cannabis stores in Washington, D.C. is suing several city officials to stop enforcement actions against their businesses. Nebraska Medical, this is 3 parts here. Nebraska medical marijuana petition circulator enters guilty plea in case over ballot initiative signatures. He forged some signatures. Nebraska petition circular for medical marijuana initiative pleaded guilty to a misdemeanor for falsifying ballot signatures. This person admitted to adding signatures from a phone book. They still have those out there? Phone books? Yellow Pages still around?
We just got one a couple weeks ago. I couldn't believe it. A Yellow Pages.
Coming back a Yellow Pages.
Wow,
That's
really?
fucking great. About the validity of nearly 50,000 signatures. However, the votes will still be counted. Medical marijuana advocates argue the investigations aim to disenfranchise Nebraskans, while state officials emphasize the importance of preventing fraud in the petition process. So I think it's going to go through. We'll see. You deserve it, Nebraska. Whether he forged the signatures or not, that person was doing it for cannabis. So California cannabis tax rate set to increase again. California's cannabis excise tax is to increase from 15% to 19% on July 1st, 2025 as part of the 2022 deal to remove the cultivation tax. Great. Just bankrupt more people there. Newsom, you're a nuisance. Missouri marijuana market is outperforming states with older legalization laws. Missouri recreational marijuana market launched in 2023 and has quickly grown to a $1 billion outperforming older legalization states like Arizona and Nevada. Millennials, particularly men, drive most sales, with cannabis flower being the top product. Flower power, baby. Texas lawmakers pre-filed bills to legalize marijuana in 2025 and expand low THC medical cannabis program. There you go, Texas. Smoking marijuana is now more popular in the U.S. than smoking tobacco, cigarettes, Gallup polling data shows. Gallup polling shows that more Americans now report that smoking marijuana 15% than tobacco cigarettes at 11%. While marijuana smoking has risen, cigarette smoking is at its lowest in 80 years. Marijuana use now suppresses tobacco, though alcohol use remains much higher at 58%. They should add vapes. I would like to see the vape percentage, because it's if you add vape, I think, to cigarettes, I think you'd probably be like fucking pretty high, like I am right now. Most marijuana consumers are spending more money on cannabis now than they were in the last year, poll finds. A poll by Nug MD shows that 61% of U.S. cannabis consumers are spending more on marijuana this year than last year. The trend reflects products cost and increased demand for cannabis, with 45% of respondents expecting to spend even more next year. Hell yeah, go cannabis. Arizona marijuana sales hit lowest monthly totals of 2024 in September, as recreational purchases continue to slide. Arizona marijuana market hits its lowest point in 2024 in September, with 67.3 million in recreational sales and 15.8 million in medical sales. This combined 83.1 million is part of a steady decline since March. I can tell you why in a second. Medical sales have dropped 35% since then, and total annual sales are projected to fall short of last year's 1.4 billion. Despite the downturn, the state has collected 199 million in tax revenue from cannabis sales so far this year.
I think they're doing just fine.
Yes, I think they're doing just fine too. My assumption, you know what they say when you assume, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm still going to assume. My assumption is this. All of the states around them now are selling. They weren't the first. Colorado was, and then you had Arizona, Nevada. You had California. All those states in the Southwest are all legal now. New Mexico, they're all legal. Utah even has a medical program. You don't need to really go to other states anymore. First and foremost, two, price compression has been a big deal, and it's a fucking crazy market in Arizona. If you ain't doing a BOGO, and if you don't know what a BOGO is. In Illinois, people don't know what a BOGO is unless it tells you. We suck with acronyms here in Illinois. It's buy one, get one. I do anyway. So a BOGO is you buy one, get one, or you can buy one, get one for half off, whatever. But Arizona is like the fucking craziness over there. Like crazy sales. I mean, it's just like the price compression is just absolutely fucking nuts. So that could be a little bit of a reason. Plus you got to think too, you have in-state, out-of-state residents too from time. So September was probably low because the snowbirds travel.
Over.
Yeah. Right. Treasury report, over 800 banks partnered with cannabis companies in 2023, despite federal hurdles. The U.S. Treasury's latest report reveals that 830 banks and credit unions I said 808, it's 830, worked with cannabis businesses in 2023, marking a significant rise from previous years. Despite this progress, fewer than 10% of U.S. financial institutions engage with the cannabis sector, largely due to the plant's federal classification of Schedule I controlled substance. The report highlights that legislative efforts to protect banks from federal penalties have stalled in Congress, leaving many cannabis businesses, especially smaller and minority-owned ones, struggling to access vital banking services and investment. I'm a fan of this person. RFK Jr. plans to legalize marijuana and psychedelics to fund recovery programs. Love it. Kennedy plans to federally decriminalize marijuana and allow states to regulate its use. He also supports legalizing psychedelics but wants access to be controlled. His focus is on therapeutic use, citing studies that show psychedelics can treat PTSD, depression, and other conditions. Could this finally be the end of the war on drugs as we know it in the U.S.? Big question mark. Tax revenue from these substances would fund recovery centers. Kennedy emphasized the need for accessible and affordable treatment options. We need to make recovery simple and effective, he said. In addition to legalization, RFK Jr. supports banking reforms from the cannabis industry. He backs the Safe Banking Act, which would protect banks working with legal cannabis businesses. Kennedy plans marks a shift in the U.S. drug policy. By combining drug reform with initiative recovery models, he aims to create lasting change. I'm a fan. First ever wholesale market coming to Seattle.
Nice.
This is great. Marijuana Venture will be hosting the first ever wholesale market in Seattle, bringing together Washington producers and processors interested in buying or selling bulk trim, flower, or concentrates. The one-day event will be held on January 16th from 3 to 7, followed by a cocktail hour. The wholesale market is not open to the public. It's a business only and limited to state-licensed cannabis businesses and their representatives. It's kind of cool. I did read what it would cost to fucking have a table there.
Yeah.
But only having 20 vendors, which is dope. Okay. $1,500. You should make some money though.
Yeah.
Yeah. You walk out of there with $3-4 grand. That's pretty good. UW, University of Wisconsin, Platteville, cannabis courses are growing there. The unique college course at the University of Wisconsin-Platteville is attracting more students than ever as interest in the booming cannabis industry continues to grow nationwide. The state's only class dedicated to cannabis production is seeing an increase in enrollment, with students eager to break into the sector that's quickly becoming one of the fastest growing industries in the country, according to news sources. The courses are 24-week online program that you can study on your own time. Ooh, I want to take that course. While Wisconsin's cannabis market remains more restrictive than its neighboring states, the growing demand for education in the field isn't slowing down. Developers of the course at UW-Platteville believe the program remains optimistic. They are hopefully the state lawmakers will eventually clear a path for cannabis businesses to thrive in Wisconsin, similar to the other states that have seen an economic boost from embracing the cannabis industry. And you're going to read something about Wisconsin shortly here, too. Maryland's new cannabis dashboard keeps tabs on ER visits, poison center calls. Maryland's new cannabis public health data dashboard, launched by the Department of Health, tracks key trends following the legalization of adult use cannabis in 2023. It provides insights into emergency development visits, youth and adult cannabis usage, poison center calls, and substance use services. Notably, youth cannabis use has declined, contradicting early concerns, but cannabis-related emergency visits has risen by 44% among young adults. Stop eating 100 milligram edibles. You'll be just fine. Stop eating that much. Start low and go slow. That's probably most of the fucking problem. Poison center calls, particularly involving children, have also surged, indicating the need for better public education on safe usage and storage. Store your edibles in a locked box. Keep them out of your dog's mouth, your cat's mouth, and your children's mouth. Okay? Simple, people. Georgia to allow more medical marijuana dispensaries after patient rolls top 25K. Georgia plans to expand its medical marijuana program by issuing more dispensary licenses. Now, the patient enrollment has exceeded 25,000. Currently, 6 licensed production companies operate 13 dispensaries. Under the state's law, each company receives an additional license for every increase of 10,000 patients. This moves to improve access to medical cannabis following the state's 2015 legalization of low THC oil and 2019 establishment of a production licensing process. Millennials buy more cannabis pre-rolls than any other generation, the report says. As we were talking about earlier with pre-rolls, millennials ages 28 to 43 led the cannabis pre-roll market, accounting to 45% of its $3 billion sales in 2024. Their consumption habit reflected greater financial freedom compared to younger generations, with pre-rolls being a preferred choice. The overall market for pre-rolls has grown significantly, with a 450% increase in revenue over the past 5 years. That's a fucking pretty good increase. Not just pretty fucking good. That is amazing. And what have I said? What have I said about pre-rolls? I've been talking to people about pre-rolls for a very long time right now and how to make some money on that shit. And I finally see some people doing it. But I'm telling you what, young men, millennials, they are the biggest buyers of pre-rolls because they don't know how to roll a joint.
And they don't want to.
I can make
Maybe
fun of
they just don't want to.
Right. I can make fun of myself too. I don't know how to fucking roll a joint. Like by hand.
They like the convenience.
Yes, it's convenience. And young men, I was once one. In my 20s and 30s, I liked convenience. I hated
like they'll call Uber Eats for a burger and pay $30 for it.
Our tech does
and
that.
eat a cold burger.
Yes. Ugh.
So they like pre-rolls.
That I won't do. I deny a cold burger. So... millennials are also drawn to premium options like infused pre-rolls too, which is another one of the fastest growing ones too right there. So that's in the news. Let's see. This is a good one by Mrs. Weedman here. So all the elections happened a couple weeks ago. The states voting on cannabis laws. We talked about a lot of them. But now they're already talking about 2025. Yeah. And there's some advocates that are predicting certain states that may go legal. Yeah. Right. Tell us about it, Mrs. Weedman.
All right. This is a big one. Hang on, everybody, and listen in. In elections aftermath, Pennsylvania and Hawaii appear most likely to legalize marijuana in 2025, advocates predict. In the aftermath of the election, cannabis reform advocates are working to determine what the outcomes will mean for state-level efforts at legislation. Shifts in party control over legislative chambers, as well as the election of new governors in some states, have forced activists to take a hard look at strategy for the coming legislative sessions. Marijuana Moment spoke with activists involved in reform efforts in various states in the past week, including staffers at the organization Marijuana Policy Project, or MPP, about what the election results might mean in the year ahead. They said some states, such as Pennsylvania and Hawaii, are well positioned to potentially enact adult use legalization, while voters in New Hampshire, for example, may have largely shut the door to legislation for the time being. Yet the picture in other states, including Florida and Wisconsin, remains less clear in the election's aftermath. With strong support among voters for marijuana legalization, legislative makeups raise questions about whether any kind of reform might be achievable. So let's break it down to the states. Pennsylvania, despite their divided legislature, many advocates are optimistic that Pennsylvania could be the next wave of states to pass adult use legalization. The local group Responsible Pennsylvania said after the election resulted in Democrats keeping their House majority that the nation is now looking at Pennsylvania to be the next large state to legalize adult use cannabis. We are hopeful to see the legislature double down on their efforts in January to get Pennsylvania on track with an adult use cannabis market, the group said in a statement. In September, bipartisan representatives Aaron Coffer and Emily Kincaid formally introduced a bipartisan marijuana legalization bill alongside 15 other co-sponsors. Meanwhile, a top GOP Pennsylvania senator who has long expressed concerns about marijuana legalization told advocates recently that she's against arresting people over cannabis. Hawaii, after last legislative session's push to legalize adult use marijuana in Hawaii fell short, advocates are hopeful that the coming sessions could finally bring about the reform. O'Keefe at MPP told Marijuana Moment, "My money would be on Hawaii being the best bet for legalization in 2025, she said. It's certainly not a slam dunk, O'Keefe acknowledged, but it's the only state left that's got a Democratic trifecta, with the party controlling both the governor's office and both chambers of the legislature. Proposals to end prohibition have consistently stalled out before reaching the finish line. Governor Josh Green said in April that he had a possible solution to the situation, vastly expanding Hawaii's existing medical cannabis system to allow people to register based on any health concern. Green signed a bill into law, HB 1595, to create a single county pilot program that will expunge certain non-conviction marijuana records. And state officials announced they're seeking proposals to assess the state's current medical marijuana program to estimate demand for recreational cannabis sales if the state eventually moves forward with adult use legalization. Florida. Amendment 3 would have legalized adult use marijuana in the state. Will the 56% support for the reform encourage lawmakers to take action? Support didn't crack the 60% threshold needed to pass the constitutional amendment, but campaign organizers have noted that a majority of Floridians came out in favor of ending prohibition. MPP's Kevin Caldwell said he'd be surprised if Florida enacts adult use legalization anytime soon. As MPP's Southeast legislative manager, he has predicted the state might take steps to expand its existing medical marijuana program. One of the things that fascinates me about Florida is that, for lack of a better word, obsession that Governor DeSantis had with home grow, he said. Maybe that evolution continues, and he allows the medical patients of Florida to grow a couple of plants for their own medicine. I'd love to test the waters and see the reception for a solely homegrown marijuana bill, said Republican Alexander.
That would be wonderful.
Yeah, Andrade. Though he added he has no idea whether the proposal would get traction with other lawmakers. Senator Joe Grutters, who supported Amendment 3, said he'd like to see recreational legalization, but with more guardrails. But incoming Senate President Ben Albritton has said he doesn't support expansion of legalization beyond Florida's existing medical marijuana program.
At least give home grow then.
Yeah. And incoming House Speaker Daniel Perez, who opposed the recent ballot measure, said his views on legalization haven't changed. Separately, Caldwell at MPP predicted lawmakers will have an appetite to go after the proliferation of intoxicating hemp products in the state this session, though DeSantis might stand in their way. New Hampshire. What felt last year like strong momentum to legalize marijuana in New Hampshire has diminished sharply since the election of Republican Kelly Ayotte. While Sununu, the prior person, was a hesitant supporter of adult use legalization through a state-controlled system of franchise stores in the last legislative session, Governor-elect Ayotte, boy, I can't say things today, has said flatly that she'll oppose any effort at the reform. Matt Simon, Director of Public and Government Relations at the medical marijuana provider Granite Leaf, said the election results are likely to delay comprehensive legalization in New Hampshire for years, though he left the door open for Ayotte to revise her views on the issue. New Hampshire will definitely legalize cannabis someday, he told Marijuana Moment earlier this month. The odds of that happening in the next biennium do not appear great. Despite the new governor's opposition and an uphill fight in the legislature, Democratic Representative Jared Sullivan has requested 2 versions of legalization legislation be drafted for the coming session. One bill that would legalize and regulate a commercial cannabis industry, and another that would merely legalize personal possession and use. They are unlikely to pass and become law, the lawmaker acknowledged in an email last week, but at least the conversation will continue. State lawmakers nearly passed legislation this past session that would have legalized and regulated marijuana for adults. Tabling the legislation sparked accusations that politicians were using the issue to earn party votes at the ballot box. But most who voted against the bill at the time said they were opposed to the plan on its merits, pointing to the proposal's state-controlled franchise model, which would have given the state unprecedented sway over retail stores and consumer prices. Scratchy throat. I need a drink. Hang on. Wisconsin. Wisconsin has been in the news.
We've been waiting on this one.
Boy. Wisconsin Governor Tony Evers, Democrat, said in May that he was hopeful that legislation to legalize adult use cannabis could pass. It still seems possible, maybe, that Wisconsin could pass medical cannabis, said O'Keefe at MPP, but it's not the more favorable outcome that advocates were hoping for. Assembly Speaker Robin Voss, a Republican, unveiled a medical cannabis bill in January, proposing the most restrictive medical cannabis law in the country. It quickly drew criticism, both from Democrats who wanted comprehensive legalization, as well as Republican Senate leaders who took issue with the specifics of the proposal. O'Keefe said she saw a possibility for medical marijuana in Wisconsin in the legislative session ahead, but only if parties can find common ground on what a revised medical bill would look like. North Carolina.
But wait, we just got word, some friends of ours sent us an article too, that there's a big push right now in Wisconsin to try to get something going on the ballots, right?
Yeah.
From what I was reading.
I didn't read all the details, but there is some group, some organization that is pushing the agenda.
Yes. So we'll see what happens. Come on, Wisconsin.
Yes. North Carolina. Between the two Carolinas, this strain is playing out in my sinuses and in my senses. Like my light, like I keep seeing like a bright light over here. And then everything is kind of haloed.
Got a little bit of euphoria going on.
But then I've got like the raspy congestion and like clicking in.
I got a little nose.
I got clicking in my ears.
Yes.
Yeah, it's
but this
interesting.
is why this is a great
But
stand
it's like
to go lay
that
down.
real mellow. Yeah. So pardon me. North Carolina. Between the two Carolinas, Caldwell at MPP said he's more bullish on the northern neighbor in terms of likely cannabis reform this session. He pointed to Democratic gains in the Senate, in the state house, and support for medical marijuana from Republican Senator Bill Rabin, a colon cancer survivor who said cannabis helped him manage nausea. Senator Rabin has said that he's going to continue to introduce his medical cannabis bill every year as long as he's in. Caldwell said he's going to continue to push. Caldwell of MPP believes there's a chance for at least some moderate reforms. For example, strengthening what he called the state's incredibly weak so-called decriminalization law, under which possession is a misdemeanor but does not carry the possibility of jail time. In June, the North Carolina Senate approved a bill that would legalize medical marijuana, though the reform has consistently stalled in the House due to a lack of majority support within the Republican caucus. Meanwhile, in North Carolina, the only legal marijuana retailer within the state began sales to all adults 21 and older in September. The shop is located on the 57,000-acre Qualla boundary of the Eastern Band of Cherokee Indians, where the tribe's members voted to legalize adult-use cannabis in September of last year. South Carolina. As for South Carolina, Caldwell said there's still a lot of questions around how a medical marijuana bill would fare in the state legislature, but he's predicted the state is going to continue to have challenges on its path to adopting the change. Once again, our hero and lead sponsor, Republican Senator Tom Davis, was strongly reelected again, Caldwell said. We know he's dedicated to this, and we got a lot of new people coming in. Davis's medical cannabis legislation has advanced through the Senate several times only to consistently stall on the House side. While there may not currently be enough votes to enact the reform, Caldwell emphasized the possible impact of the incoming president, whom he noted has spoken very, very much in favor of medical cannabis. It's possible, specifically in the Carolinas, and maybe even to a point in Kansas, maybe there will be some kind of push from the executive branch to come to a compromise position, he said. Kansas. In Kansas.
You ain't in Kansas anymore, Dorothy.
Where Caldwell gave testimony. You're funny.
Am I here to amuse you?
Where Caldwell gave testimony in support. You could probably do a whole show on movie lines.
I used to, probably not anymore,
No.
but I used to be able to.
You could go for
I used
a
to be
bit.
able to roll for like a good hour on movie lines. Probably now about 30 minutes. So
All right. Back to Kansas, where Caldwell gave testimony in support of medical marijuana reform to a legislative committee earlier this year. He said many state-level lawmakers are still utterly terrified at the idea of legalizing cannabis. But as with the Carolinas, he held out hope that pressure from the incoming administration might open lawmakers' minds to a compromise with a medical marijuana program. The Kansas House passed a medical cannabis legislation bill in 2021, but efforts in the Senate have continued to prove challenging. I think the focus in the Deep South, in my world, is going to be take victories where you can. But once again, it's going to be slow, incremental victories, said Caldwell.
Do these government officials and people who we vote in realize how much weed is being smoked in their states? It's just ridiculous. Do they even really know? Or they just don't care? I mean,
I don't think they care. I think they think there's just so much bigger issues to work on, but a lot of those bigger issues require money. And cannabis can be the answer for that. And while it equally provides benefits to millions of consumers who want it.
I mean, and some people probably don't ever want it to be legalized in their state because they're probably growing and making money in the side hustles and shit like that too in non-legal states. You know, people that are making money on the traditional market level probably don't
But we've
want.
seen that balance out for people.
Yeah, of course. Oh, yeah, 100%.
There's still people that are
Right.
not going to want to go to dispensaries.
Right. And
And they don't want to grow, so they got a guy.
Right. And everybody's got a guy.
Everyone's got one.
And it's just crazy. These older government officials
Can't see.
are blinded by that.
I'm blinded by weed right now. Can't see.
So yeah, so it's just like crazy that they don't understand that people use cannabis in their state, whether they want to turn a blind eye to it or not. There's a lot of weed smokers in North Carolina, you know, in South Carolina, in Georgia. I've been to a lot of those states and have smoked weed in a lot of illegal states. And Indiana, I go to Indianapolis, I've gotten whacked in Indiana too many times, you know, smoking weed with people. It's just so stupid. Just go ahead, finish
All
it.
right. O'Keefe, MPP's Director of State Policies, also noted that despite some recent failures at expanding state-level cannabis reform, so far no state has undone a marijuana legalization law. That's an important fact.
Yes.
Whether the president-elect's stated support for legalization will translate into an action on reform legislation after taking office in January is uncertain. Republicans have reclaimed a majority in the U.S. Senate, and the political composition of the House is still to be determined. The president's power to unilaterally change federal marijuana laws is limited, and GOP congressional lawmakers have historically resisted cannabis reform. So, time will tell.
Let's hope all those states get their shit together.
I hope so.
International news. Australia's parliament set to vote on marijuana legalization bill this month.
Ooh.
Go Tez. Australia's parliament is set to vote on a marijuana legalization bill on November 27, 2024. The bill proposes national cannabis regulation, including a Cannabis Australia national agency to oversee the industry. It also allows home cultivation and cannabis cafes. We may have to go move to Australia. However, the bill faces opposition due to concerns about health risk and increased consumption. Proponents argue the move would reduce organized crime and generate billions in tax revenue. While cannabis is legally federally, some local reforms like decriminalization and cannabera have been made. Ontario cannabis retail in 2023 to 2024 perspective. The Ontario cannabis retail market faced challenges in 2023 with a slower growth in store numbers and profitability struggles for many cannabis retailers. Sales rose by 12% year over year, reaching $2.1 billion. But most of this increase came from an expanded store base. The average store saw only 5% sales increase despite a 7% rise in licensed stores. The increased competition resulted in lower prices, putting additional strains on retailers. Meanwhile, the Ontario Cannabis Store remained profitable, contributing significant revenue to the because it's a government-owned dispensary. Czech cabinet moves to relax cannabis laws. The Czech Republic's center-right government has approved a plan to relax cannabis laws. Under the new legalization, individuals can grow up to 3 cannabis plants, hell yeah, with more than 1% THC, yeah, okay, and possess up to 50 grams outdoors or 25 grams at home. Fines will replace prison sentences for larger quantities. Justice Minister Pavel Balzek argued that the current penalties were outdated. The changes aim to reduce prisons' overcrowding, improve legal efficiency, and cut costs. The Czech Republic joins a growing list of European countries relaxing cannabis regulations. Polish lawmakers send marijuana decriminalization petition to Prime Minister amid regional reform movement. Polish lawmakers have sent a petition to Prime Minister Donald Tusk urging the decriminalization of cannabis possession up to 15 grams and personal cultivation 1 plant. You can still get a lot off of 1 plant. The petition reflects a broader regional movement towards reform, with neighboring countries like Germany and Ukraine making strides in cannabis legalization. While not legally binding, the petition may prompt further action depending on upcoming presidential election. Support for decriminalization proposal has given within the government, with activists optimistic about its potential progress. We like to travel when we can.
We do.
We like to go places. Of course, there's good food.
Yeah.
Sites. We like to get lost in the sauce when we travel, and I mean that in a couple different ways. We eat, we smoke weed, we eat, we drink, and we get lost. We wander. We like to wander, and we like to hang out where the locals hang out. Well, yeah, we see some of the tourist sites and shit like that. But to me, when I go on a vacation or on a trip, I like to go see the local stuff because that to me is more impressive than, there's cool, you can go to any fucking museum. They're great.
There's things you need to see.
There's
and then
things
there's
you need to see.
things you need to see.
Then there's things I want to see. And I love hanging out with the locals hang out at. It's just my jam. It's always been that way, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm a dive bar fanatic. I love a good dive bar. That's like my thing. I can go. You take me to a few 3 that has really good food. I am a happy camper. And if that dive bar is 420 friendly, it's even better. So, but tell us about the 7 best places to give cannabis tourism a whirl going into 2025.
Yeah. We've come a long way from reefer madness and the war on drugs to the spreading legalization of recreational marijuana. It's not only happening in the U.S. and Canada, but all around the world. The easing of restrictions has led to the rise of a new buzz term in the industry, Cannabis tourism, which includes everything from pop-up hash bars and themed consumption lounges to farm visits and luxury hotels specializing in sativa-induced sleep. According to Cannabis Travel Association International, cannabis tourism is a growth industry, not only in North America, but in places like Spain, Mexico, India, Uruguay, and Thailand. While cannabis tourism operates legally, it's still a bit of an underground thing. In many states and countries, you can grow or buy weed, but consumption is only legal on private property. In response, cannabis-friendly hotels and some rentals, as well as cannabis-featured farm tours, private catering, yoga sessions, painting classes, and gourmet meals are proliferating. After Colorado legalized recreational marijuana, a study found that nearly 50% of tourists visited due to the new Rocky Mountain High friendly legislation. So, are you ready to join the party? Here are cities and areas in and around the U.S. to design your first cannabis vacation. Las Vegas. It's no surprise that Sin City is on the forefront of cannabis tourism. Not only are consumption lounges becoming a thing, but so are guided trips that include everything from cannabis tours to the Grand Canyon to Rock Canyon to helicopter flights over the Strip. You'll want to check out Planet 13, a 112,000 square foot building that's reputed to be the world's largest dispensary. One of the first consumption lounges is the New Woo Cannabis Marketplace on Las Vegas Paiute tribal land north of downtown. The native reservation operates independently from federal law, and they were some of the first to embrace cannabis tourism. There are few people in the cannabis entertainment industry as enthusiastic and knowledgeable as proprietor Maxine Fensom, founder of Las Vegas Cannabis Tours and Las Vegas Cannabis Weddings. Sign up for the Stoner Tour to visit dispensaries. Take the Get High and Fly helicopter tour, that's it, or the Grass and Glass option to create your own glass-blown dabber. Fensom, an ordained minister, also created Las Vegas wedding tours where you can say, I do be, inside of Planet 13, or in the privacy of a cannabis grow house, complete with cannabis leaf bouquet. Or plan a stay at the Lexi Hotel, which bills itself as the spot for cocktail, cannabis, and cabana connoisseurs. Los Angeles. There are plenty of cannabis tours in LA, but perhaps the most unique experience is the Cannabis Supper Club, with private events that focus on gourmet meals paired with locally grown high-end weed. There's a tasting bar and an infused food menu created by celebrity chef Chris Binotto. The organization hosts a handful of other culinary cannabis experiences throughout the year. You can get on their mailing list for updates. New York City. Located in the heart of Soho, the House of Cannabis is a 30,000 square foot immersive, multi-sensory experience that explores the plant's impact on art, music, history, and social reform. The property offers 3 floors of interactive installations, including the Euphorium, a hazy, light-soaked room furnished with a giant spinning record, which guests can laze upon while listening to trippy music. The facility is designed to educate people about the history of cannabis, as well as cultivate an appreciation for the plant. It also houses a luxurious private event rooftop lounge. Plans include an on-site dispensary, plus a variety of cultural events and programming. Arizona. In Tempe, Arizona, head to the Mint Cafe. It's attached to a dispensary and has a kitchen that makes cannabis-infused food. Stay at the Clarendon Hotel and Spa, a cannabis-friendly hotel with its own consumption lounge, luxury transport, and tours for all sorts of activities. San Francisco in Northern California. It's not surprising that there's a cannabis trail in Northern California. This verdant part of the state has been the world's bud basket for years. It's the perfect destination for high adventure. Emerald Farm Tours offers full-day tours from San Francisco to some of the state's most interesting cannabis farms. You'll meet the farmers and extractors, taste and sample the local flavors, and come away with a newfound understanding and appreciation for the history and future of the cannabis plant. In Mendocino County, there are puff and paint sessions at Fort Bragg's The Bakery that features artisanal cannabis products. In Ukiah, visitors can tap into the plant shop for a stash of local sun-grown herb or a medicated yoga session. On site, a half-acre consumption lounge provides a safe and communal environment for imbibing. Nearby, the Compassionate Heart offers a standout selection of local green, along with a playful alfresco smoke lounge. For a collective high, check out Cure Wellness, with 3 outposts that provide hip, shaded smoking lounges and locally sourced products. Farther north, Willits is home to the Cannabis Culture Museum, providing over 50 years of insight on the ancient use of marijuana as medicine, hemp culture, and cannabis counterculture. In Sonoma wine country, Mine Farm is set on 2.5 acres along the Russian River, housed in the 117-year-old historic Ridenauer Ranch. The property cultivates small batch cannabis from seed to harvest to share with guests in the form of special wine and weed-infused dinners and elevated yoga events to custom complimentary pre-rolls shared on site. Colorado. Colorado has more than 3,000 marijuana businesses, according to the Denver Gazette's last count, and the industry keeps growing. In fact, sometimes it feels like Denver is the weed center of the universe, offering all-inclusive pot vacations and various weed tours at a quick glance. High among them, Colorado Cannabis Tours will pick you up at the airport and deliver you to your hotel. The company's original Colorado Cannabis Tour will then board you onto a party bus bound for some of Denver's famous dispensaries. Other tours include Red Rocks Amphitheater and Lookout Mountain for a surreal sunset experience. And Canada. Western Canada has been called the Disneyland of cannabis culture, with Vancouver on the cutting edge of cannabis tourism. In neighboring Alberta mountain country, join a tour with Kananaskis by founder-owner Dave Dormer, an award-winning journalist and expert on weed culture. He'll take you to a classically Canadian dispensary and then, after a smoke break, guide you through the magnificent mountains and valleys of Kananaskis. You can also sign up for a myriad of puff and paint classes offered weekly in Calgary. Marijuana, Mary Jane, bud, reefer, weed, dope, ganja, grass, skunk, blunt, whatever you call it, call it. It has a long and checkered past. The use of hemp for rope, sails, and clothing dates back tens and thousands of years. Archaeologists suspect the plant and its use originated in the Altai Mountains of Central Asia and Western China. In Europe, nearly 2 pounds of THC, along with the bones of a man thought to be a shaman, were found in the grave dating to about 750 BC, and scholars point to passages in classic works of literature, including Homer's Odyssey and essays by Herodotus and Pliny the Elder as describing the psychoactive qualities of the plant. Weed also has a long history in North America. In the early 1600s, Virginia required farmers to grow hemp, and it was used for legal tender in Maryland, Pennsylvania, and Virginia. George Washington grew hemp too. By the 1800s, marijuana was a common ingredient in medicines designed to treat everything from skin rashes and migraines to depression. It wasn't until after the Mexican Revolution of 1910, when Mexican immigrants headed north en masse, that recreational weed gained notoriety. It's thought that racial prejudices, fueled by the work shortages of the Great Depression, led to stiffer sanctions. By 1931, 29 states had outlawed the plant, and in 1937, 8 decades ago, the Federal Marijuana Tax Act significantly decreased public access. Then, in 1970, with Nixon's war on drugs gaining speed, the plant was included in the Controlled Substance Act as a Schedule I drug, putting it in the same category as heroin. That didn't stop consumption by any means. Cut to the late 1990s, groups like NORML, the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws, has gained traction. Today, 24 states plus Washington, D.C., 3 U.S. territories, and 6 tribal nations have sanctioned not only medical marijuana, but also recreational use. Now, cannabis is a 30 billion plus industry in the United States, involving thousands of grows, dispensaries, edible manufacturers, and new consumption lounges. With recreational cannabis consumption being at an all-time high, it's no wonder that cannabis tourism is flourishing. For both novices and the initiated, a good guide knows where you can combine activities, food, and education into a fun experience while providing situational awareness and savvy in a new environment. A quality guide service is your ticket to a successful cannabis vacation.
Love it.
Yes.
When are we going on our next vacation?
Tomorrow?
That'd be great. Wu-Tang. Wu-Tang forever.
Yes.
Wu-Tang Clan's Raekwon hosting grand opening of Newark Dispensary, Hastoria. Congratulations. That's big time.
Yeah.
Love it. So, Mrs. Weedman,
Mr. Weedman.
that's the end of the show.
Yep. I'm baked.
Got
But I'm
anything
ready
else
to have some more.
Me too. I'd like to thank Ignius for throwing to the cause in this
Yes.
show. We got plenty of more strains to smoke from different growers and looking forward to it. But you got anything else to say before we go?
Well, everybody, just stay safe and stay well. And go get high, would you?
Hey, everybody out there in the world, we love you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being a part of this. Thank you for being part of everything we love about you. Be safe out there. Be kind to one another. Peace be with you all. As Polo always says, smoke smart. Puff, puff, and away.
Puff, puff, pass.
Check out our cannabis lifestyle brand online at 8decades.com. Our custom smokes and accessories are perfect for your coffee table, bedroom nightstand, or kitchen counter. They're designed for you to show them off. The Canna community is also loving our hemp and cotton blend t-shirts, sweatshirts, scarves, and hats, finished off with our 8 Decades logo. We've got some awesome long-lasting goods that will be your favorite for years to come. 8 Decades, because a 9th decade of cannabis prohibition isn't acceptable.